This Wageningen Experience Day brings work colleagues and alumni closer together. Numerous topics and research areas will be discussed, and they are all connected. Climate is not separate from food security, and that in turn is linked to the circular economy. The challenges our planet is facing have an impact on our daily lives. A hybrid get-together, just like we do today at the Wageningen Experience Day, for example, is a very good alternative for flying. Welcome to Wageningen Talks.
Sjoukje Heimovara, President of the Executive Board of Wageningen University and Research. Welcome everybody. Welcome here at Impulse. Welcome everybody at home. We have alumni from 54 countries with us today, amongst others from Ethiopia. And in this Wageningen Talks, I have three guests here with me at the table. Guido Camps, he is researching what we eat, when we eat, why we eat. Ioannes Athanasiades, I practiced, tries to make the world a better place using artificial intelligence. And Emmeke Vierhout, she has a farm in Ukraine and is raising money to buy 10,000 water filters. More about that in this talk show. And I would like to introduce Olaf Rhijnsburger. Olaf, you're not an alumnus, you're a student. How are you?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here today with so many people joining us here in Impulse and online. I'm excited to have a nice conversation here.
Yeah, let's find out what people want to ask my wonderful guests here at the table. You're my co-host today, and you will monitor the online questions and see if you have questions here in the audience as well. Let's start with you, Guido Camps. One of the projects you're working on is the hungry robot. Can you explain this to me?
Well, we're trying to do all this research in why people eat, when they eat, how much they eat. And we decided to call that all-encompassing hungry robot, as in the automation of doing nutrition research. So that's where that came from. And it also helps in that it sticks, because even you now refer to
it. The hungry robot, right? Yeah. It's kind of awesome, yeah. We also have some footage of that research. Let's see if we can see it, and then maybe you can explain what we see.
Yeah, so we see a colleague here from Eindhoven who's eating a chocoladepepernoot, a chocolate biscuit. And on the screen you see the algorithm in real time looking at his body posture, looking at his face, putting all these markers on his body so that we can count how he's behaving, but also how he's chewing when he's swallowing. Now, a lot of people might be, why on earth would you be interested in how people chew and how people swallow? Most people try not to look at other people eating because it's disgusting usually. But we are interested in figuring out how you eat because it can influence how much you eat, for example. So if you want people to eat less, then you want to know how often they chew, because then you can modify the food. So, and this is one of the ways doing it automatically, instead of having some poor master student looking back at this footage and in Excel clicking when somebody's chewing.
Yeah. Does it work properly?
No.
No?
It doesn't work at all. No, we're getting there. But it's very difficult in different types of people. It's very difficult when people are not looking at the camera. So in the best of cases, it works really well. And then, as it always is in research, in practice, it's difficult. So we're getting better.
Yeah, you have to improve.
Constantly.
Yeah. And it's probably also better because if I have to report what I'm eating all day, then probably I'll forget like half of it, right?
Yeah, so we know...
And how I do it and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So we know the current golden standard for knowing what somebody eats is having a dietitian interview or doing a questionnaire. And we know that the accuracy is around 60%, and that also the higher your BMI is, the more likely you are to underreport what you're eating.
Are you saying people are lying more if they eat more?
Well, it could also be that these people simply don't know what they're eating. And so I think every type of mechanism you want to invent with feedback or coaching or helping people out, you need better data, and that's why I'm interested in gathering better data.
Yeah, and how does it work? Because we see you can look at the camera how they're chewing and so on. What kind of factors do you want to research?
Yeah, so that's, and I think that might be quite novel for people who have this, who aren't aware that there's so much AI research happening now at Wageningen. So we have another professor, was another professor this morning. We are working together with companies on campus. So one of the things is a smart snack box that records when you're snacking. We have algorithms on watches that detect drinking and eating behaviors so that we can know, hey, something's happening. So we're doing all of these little technical innovations to get to the moment you're eating, how much you're consuming by using smart scales that can record the weight that's changing on a plate or on a tray.
Yeah.
So all sorts of techniques.
I understood you use it in nursing homes, right?
Well, that's the idea, that in the end we can use this research in a nursing home or in a care facility to see what patients are eating and which ones aren't, and also whether they're getting enough protein, because we know that protein intake in the elderly but also in patients is very important for their recovery and also for preventing complications.
Yeah. What are some of the research questions behind all of this? What do you want to know?
So I think the essential question is, what are people eating? So that's like the main question, because we think we know, but we actually don't. And then we can divide that up into, as you said before, like when are they eating? So how many eating moments are there? But also how are they eating? So that's where this video comes in. So the chewing behavior, the eating behavior, etc. And then the last question is, what exactly are they eating? Because let's take a typically Dutch example, which is like a sandwich with chocolate sprinkles, right? So a boterham met hagelslag for the Dutchies. And then, firstly, just having to type that into a food diary is horrible. But then also, it's probably wrong, because you either ate a whole wheat or a brown or a white sandwich, and then with butter or margarine, and then there's different types of sprinkles. And that can all influence the amount of calories or what you're specifically eating. So the goal would be to make that automatic, so you don't have to put in all that effort, which leads to incomplete data or errors.
Yeah, so this way you improve your data and improve your research. What do you want to do with that knowledge? How can we? Do I have a tray when I eat, or is it giving me feedback? Stop eating sandwiches with chocolate sprinkles, or is it also a method to give me feedback in the end?
Yeah, so I'm interested indeed in what is the effect of, for example, food structure or the type of meal on how do you eat or when do you eat. So I want to know that part, but all nutrition research is based on the foundation of gathering data on what people eat. So if we can improve that, then actually all of the research that's happening in the building literally next door, the human nutrition department, can improve. So I think almost every research question could be impacted by this. But for me, I'm very interested in, for example, are ultra-processed foods as bad as they are made out to be, or are they not really that bad? Those types of questions are more easily answerable if we have good technology.
Yeah. And are there also things, because I'm looking at the AI professor next to you, that you want to measure but you cannot measure yet? You're like frustrated, I would really like to know this, but hey, I don't have the technical solutions to that.
Well, yeah, so getting back to the sandwiches, we wanted to see if we could figure out what's in between a sandwich. So in Dutch you have the double sandwich, which is 2 layers of bread, and then you have some sort of topping in between. And we were interested in, can we make a video or a photograph of that sandwich and then use AI magic to see what's in between. And then that's because light doesn't...
James Bond level.
I know.
Yeah.
But so the reason this should be theoretically possible is because light doesn't reflect always from the surface, but sometimes it goes a little bit deeper and then it reflects back from a little bit of a deeper layer. So we thought, we should be able to do this. It failed magnificently so far, but we are still working on it. So we're now using a camera that's, I think, 60,000 euros, and we got the difference between cheese and chocolate sprinkles. But so I would love to be able to scale that, to make that smaller and carryable, because we cannot ask participants to carry around a 60,000 euro camera and put their sandwich in there before they eat it. So yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, life's difficult as a researcher.
But, I'm smiling because it's also amazing to be able to do that at this university.
Yeah. Can you help out, Ioannes? Or?
Yeah, solve it for me, please.
Yes. Please give me a call.
Yeah, let's do that afterwards. Yeah. So many people maybe in the audience recognize you also because you participated in Heel Holland Bakt, the Dutch spin-off from the Great British Bake Off. There it's also very clear that food is not only about nourishment but also a social thing, right? In the Heel Holland Bakt, it's gezellig, as they would say in Dutch.
And it has to taste good, because that's something we tend to forget sometimes when we focus on the health aspects.
It has to taste good, otherwise you don't win the show. It's a social thing. How do you measure that with all your AI?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is it a part of your research, or is
no?
it?
Well, I think it's also, it makes it. It's a very good question, because sometimes we tend to focus so much on the nutrients or the components of the food that we tend to forget that people don't consume calcium. They don't consume carbs. What they consume is food, and it happens to be made out of these components, but what they are actually interested in eating is food. So we should always come back to the fact that people are consuming real food and not just a collection of nutrients. And so it's a very good question, and we don't have very good tools to measure that, apart from asking them, do you like it? And then they rate it, and then they say, I like it very much, or in some cases with our test foods, they hate it. And they say, I like it, I don't like it at all.
Yeah. But also in the decision making of, am I going to eat right now? Of course, the social aspect is also really important, right? So maybe you will come up with something that says to me, don't eat that sandwich with sprinkles right now. But then, my friends are eating it and I want to eat it.
And that's completely true, and it also shows you the gap sometimes that's between research and real life, because if we really want people to focus on their food, we put them in these little white cubicles. They're in the building next door, where they are completely focused on the food, and they have to give all these scores, like how much do you like it, and how much salt can you taste, etc. But then when they go home, like me, they eat with their family and their kids, and sometimes you finish a meal because your kid refused to finish it, and you think, it's such a waste to throw it away. I'll eat it, life is messy, and research has to sort of like figure out the truth within that messiness.
Yeah. Great. Let's go to Olaf for questions.
For the people online, be sure to share your questions with us in the chat. But for now, I think maybe we have some people in the audience who would like to share some thoughts about, or a question for Guido about his research or about food. We got a question over there. Let me come to you.
Hi, very interesting research. Have you considered a culture factor in your research? Because, for example, during the lunch, we had really interesting discussion with a professor sitting over there. When he was in Africa, he is a veteran. But as Africa, the family over there, they would like to treat him as the god guest, right? Therefore, that's sometimes not that much polite, not eat meat over there. And over years and years, they were convinced, okay, this is also really good to eat plant-based food for veterans. How much big impact of the culture factor in your research? That's my question. Thanks.
Yeah, again, that's an excellent question, and I think it goes a little bit towards what are you interested in. The moment you want to do a specific research that's so narrow and so focused that basically all humans are the same, then it doesn't matter. But the moment you want to know how people actually eat or how they consume, food is so cultural that it becomes amazingly important. And also you should be very aware that you cannot extrapolate your results beyond, for example, the boundaries of the Netherlands, or this issue we have in Wageningen, the boundaries of Wageningen. Because let's be honest, we do all of our research usually on campus with students from here or people from here, and they're healthier and more health conscious, and they know more about food than the general person only 10 miles or 10 kilometers away from here. So it's very important. It's a very big issue. And one funny example maybe is that we look at these smart utensils or smart trays, and they will work very well in the Dutch or Western European system, but they will not work at all in, for example, an Asian system. And one of my PhD students is Chinese, and he mocks our smart utensils, because like you should make smart chopsticks, because that's way easier, so you don't have to do a spoon and a knife and a fork. So there's this interesting research about smart chopsticks instead of smart utensils, and that shows you how big the difference is.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, thank you for your question, and thank you, Olaf.
I think I'm a Wageninger because I love curiosity.
Ik ben een echte Wageninger omdat ik hier geboren en getogen ben.
I'm a Wageningen because, this is the place where we feel that we are at home.
Oh, I was just wondering how you prevent your research not to be misused by the larger companies, because I reckon that these data would be very interesting to them as well, in a bad way maybe.
Yeah, but I think that's something that really changed the past couple of years. We have such strict privacy officers, data stewards at the university now, and we have these contracts that are checked by legal to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I'm actually really comfortable with the research we're doing. The moment it leaves the university, it's a different question. That's something that we always have to consider. So it's a consideration.
Yeah. You're already talking about data, so Ioannes Athanasiades, welcome. You're one of the 3 artificial intelligence professors here at Wageningen University. One of your colleagues was here in the talk show this morning. What is your expertise within AI?
So my expertise is on the interface between AI and environmental and agricultural applications. So I have been working both with reasoning systems, but also with data mining and deep learning for forecasting yields, but also for ecological applications.
Yeah. So, you're walking around here in Wageningen to try to find applications for AI within those fields, right? Could you already give an example of the questions you receive from researchers here?
We receive a lot of questions that have to do with pattern recognition, like those of Guido, that we want to automate how we monitor or we measure things, from greenhouses to food tasting chambers. But what interests me more is how can we have a more holistic view, and how we can learn not patterns, but how can we learn behavior, how we can learn policies, how we can look into AI from a systems perspective, not for automating measuring, but improving and helping us understand the behavior of food systems.
Yeah, and could you give an example of that? How could that work? How could that help research?
We have, for example, with a PhD student of mine, we are building a machine learning pipeline that can predict yields all across Europe and for several crops using machine learning and data-driven methods. That's something that in this extent is the first time we do it in Europe. Mm-hmm. Or in another case, we're using AI for giving better advices to farmers when and how much to fertilize, using knowledge from historical data.
Yeah.
But also their preferences, because a key thing is that we shouldn't have one shoe to fit all, but we need to take under account the local conditions, the personal preferences or practices of each farm, and have a more personalized or local advice.
Otherwise, they won't do anything with your advice, maybe.
Otherwise, we have a generic kind of average kind of, let's say, approach, mm-hmm. which is good for understanding. And for a long time, I think it was it was the norm for doing science. But now, if we really want to have AI and data-driven methods approach actually farms or citizens, we need to be able to tailor them for each individual situation or location.
Yeah. I read that you say that you are part of the machine vision community. What is it?
Machine vision is more about how we can use cameras, either these are photographs or videos, but also any other kind of images like remote sensing images and use computers to analyze what's happening in these images. And there has been a big move in this area in the past 5-10 years, mm-hmm. and it has been a huge progress. So we can now this community can transcribe videos, can translate texts, can generate videos out of text, all this kind of thing. So there is a huge potential and opportunity there.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you like to use that, if since that is possible now to do that with video and images and so on? How can we use that in daily life?
So, for example, we could use this kind of methods to monitor through remote sensing and satellite images how the planet is behaving, to take the pulse of the planet and understand what kind of transitions are going on. Yeah. But for that, we need to also integrate it with other kinds of data, not only imaging or video footage, but data coming from all different kind of sources, from sociological to economical data to other kinds of historical data.
Yeah. So, for instance, if you have an image on climate change, for instance, or the weather is changing, or fires or something, and combine it with other data, and then say what to do, is that how you can use it?
That would be the holy grail. Yeah. And
yeah.
I think this is where we would like to go, but it's extremely difficult, because one thing is to be able to detect what is in an image, and another thing is to detect what will happen in the future. And with the ongoing climate change, it's we are going out of the historical distributions. Yeah. So, and this is why we're focusing a lot in my team on how to blend AI and data-driven methods with process-based models, with physical models, so that we can actually extrapolate out of what we have seen in the past. Otherwise, these kind of systems are limited to what they have seen only. Yeah. But if we want to go and make predictions or advices in new conditions, that's a very challenging problem. Yeah. We need to integrate the knowledge we have of these systems, and we have a lot of that knowledge in Wageningen. So,
yeah. And there will be a data science master, I heard, from Arno Brecht.
Yes,
right? So
that's
it's
true.
Expanding
yes,
in
it's expanding a lot. Yeah. And this is where I think that happens also in Wageningen. We go into a new era where data-driven methods will become a toolkit, a necessary toolkit for any kind of scientist in the Wageningen domain. So it is the new statistics in a way. Huh? Yeah. So it is an indispensable tool for whatever kind of analysis you do.
Yeah. Before we go to our reporter Jelle Visser, I want to ask the audience if they have a question.
Thank you very much. A question on the data quality. Because rubbish in, rubbish out, that's what we always hear. How are you dealing with that?
That's true, and I think this is where agricultural and environmental data sets are really a very important challenge for the whole AI community, because our data are naturally very noisy, and hearing the actual signal through the noise is a very big challenge. So, but we can do a little bit of that, but we need more also fundamental research on improving algorithms and systems to be able to detect the actual pattern throughout the noise.
Yeah. Yeah. So all the data science students here in Wageningen can work on that, right?
We will keep them busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ioannes. Thank you also for the question. Let's find out where our reporter Jelle Visser is. He is somewhere here on the campus. Jelle, where are you? We have a little bit of history in a video. Let's find out. footage we have here. Guido, you said, I know what this is.
Well, I think they're doing a metabolic study and looking at her metabolism. So
Wow.
that's what I think they're doing. But we have better methods now.
Yeah, it looks like a horror movie, right?
Well, I think in this hashtag #MeToo era, this might not be the ideal way to do it.
Yeah,
no.
I don't think the ethical commission would approve this, right? Okay, let's continue. Let's go to Emmeke Vierhout. Welcome. You're alumnus of Wageningen, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How is it for you to be back on campus? You live in Ukraine normally.
Yeah, well, I haven't been back for long, and to be honest, I don't think I ever was on campus when I studied.
There was no campus?
Not yet, or maybe it was the first buildings were here, but I studied on the New Landen, which to me
Some
was,
people say, yes. Yes.
Yeah, which was a long way away.
When did
from,
you start studying?
1996.
And what did you study?
Tropical agriculture.
Okay. Yeah. So I already mentioned you live in Ukraine, or have lived on a large farm you own with Kees Huizinga.
Yes.
What is it like in Ukraine right now for you, where you live?
Right now, for us, it's quiet where we live. Although it's not peaceful, because there are still always in the town nearby there were kamikaze drones launched like 2 days ago. Another town there was an attack as well, but yeah, it's not systematically, and we live in a small village, so we feel pretty safe under these circumstances. Under these circumstances, yeah.
But you're returning to the Netherlands.
That was already planned, because for high school, my daughter is 13, and we already planned that long time ago. It was only a bit earlier than planned now.
Yeah. You want to do something for people in Ukraine. What's would you say is the biggest problem right now? I mean, of course, they're in the middle of a war, but...
Yeah, well, with some other entrepreneurs from Ukraine, we've started a foundation, the Leo Kiev, and from the start of the war, we've been bringing goods to Ukraine or buying goods in Ukraine, and it's just whatever we hear that's needed at a certain moment, that's what we bring. And at this moment, basically in the areas that are being liberated, the deoccupied areas, it's a humanitarian disaster. On all fronts. They need food, they need clothing, they need electricity, there's the winter coming, but also there's no safe drinking water. Especially in these areas, they don't have water wells, which we have in our part, so everyone has their own water well. In these areas they don't, in Kherson and especially the North Kharkiv region. So they're dependent on water systems, and the Russians basically damaged them or destroyed them. And the other problem is that a lot of the surface water has been polluted also by dead bodies lying in the water. So that's why, safe drinking water is in great need.
Yeah, and there is a solution for that. And you want to... you found a solution with the help of other alumni of Wageningen, right? Yes. Could you explain what the solution is?
Guido and Lieselot, they're also alumni from Wageningen. They developed a water filter, a ceramic water filter, after the tsunami in Aceh. And this is quite a cheap solution to clean water, surface water or rainwater from bacteria and
Zoonosis?
Yeah, help me.
Zoonotic.
Yeah. And these are very simple filters. They're just 2 buckets, the ceramic element, and a tube. And it can purify water for about 5,000 liters, I think. And a household can use this for about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And
we have a video, I guess, of and Kees made the video, right?
Yeah,
he
tested one.
Yeah, can you tell us what we see?
This is the workplace that we use in the city near our village. It's Umon, and we use internally displaced people to build the filters, and they built this genius apparatus, very simple, to make the holes. These are simple buckets ordered from Dnipro. We try to purchase and do everything locally, so to help the Ukrainian economy.
Zo ziet het er uiteindelijk uit.
This is the system. It's just a tap. and it's 2 buckets on top of each other, and this is the ceramic element. And you pour water at the top, and needs to have a tube as well, but then the clean water will be in the bottom bucket.
And how often can you use it? Does it
You
keep
can
working?
use it constantly. You just need to clean the filter. Sometimes there's a brush coming with it. And you can use it, as I said, for 5 years, for a family of 5.
Yeah.
And it's 1 filter costs, including all the work and the distribution, about 20 euros. And yeah, that's extremely cheap.
Yeah.
And it's very efficient, and it's mobile, so you don't need to have these huge water tanks. And so it's very useful to bring to those villages and distribute them. Of course, because now they're bringing bottled water, which is, of course, very inefficient.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're raising money, right, to bring 10,000 of these filters to the Ukraine. How can people help?
Well, they can donate, of course. Yes. That's the easiest way. We are being helped by the Rotary, a Rotary club from southern Portugal. They've taken up the fundraising part. They made a website, which I think will be shown later. And people can just donate on that bank account or through our foundation, the Leeuw, Kiev. And because 10,000 is only the start, they need millions of water filters. And so we just want to bring as many as we can.
Yeah.
And to help as many people as we can, because it will be needed. I think the war will take a long time still, and all these deoccupied areas, as we saw in Mariupol, there's already an outbreak of cholera there. They need a lot of safe water elements in whatever way. So
yeah, we will place a link in the chat, so there people can find the link. I guess it's also really difficult, right, to get the filters and bring them to the areas where you need it, where they need it.
Well, that's our strength. Yeah. We've lived in Ukraine for over 20 years. Yeah. All of our partners have lived in Ukraine for that long. We do. Most of them have businesses. We've got our network goes deep into occupied territory. And we are not, most NGOs are not allowed to work in war zone, and all the deoccupied areas are still war zone officially. And well, we don't have such restrictions. And so Save UA, the foundation we work with in Ukraine for this matter, they can go wherever they want. And we've got the connections, and we can decide for ourselves whether it's safe or not to go. We have close contact with the army. They can tell us where to go, where not to go. So yeah, it is difficult, but for us, I think it's easier than for people who don't have the connections in Ukraine. Yeah. And we speak the language, we know the people. Yeah. So
great that you're doing this. Yeah. Let's turn.
Yes, of course. I mean, we've lived in Ukraine.
I can
for 20
imagine
years.
you want
It's
to
our home
do
country.
something for the Ukrainians. Yeah. Let's move to Olaf if there are questions.
It's truly
for you,
inspiring.
Emmeke.
It's really inspiring to hear about the things you are doing. I can imagine that some people in the audience would like to ask a question or respond. Yeah, over there. I'll come to you.
Thank you, Emmeke. And I think it's a very nice example of, or it's a very strong example of alumni collaboration. How were you able to find each other making this happen?
Yeah, good question. We were asked by Guido and Lisa to help with UNICEF filters bringing to Ukraine that they also provided.
So they contacted you?
They contacted us, and to be honest, I really don't know what the direct link was, but Guido and I did the same studies, and I think Guido was 1 year after me, and so he made the connection somehow.
Yeah, and maybe because Kees was on television.
Maybe, yeah.
Or, yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
should ask him.
Yeah,
but we've got a lot
question.
of connections with other friends, so yeah.
I guess Wageningen alumni just always find each other in the end,
yeah,
right?
I think so.
It will work out. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to ask a question about the farm you run. How the hell are you doing that? Because you're living in the Netherlands at this moment. You have a lot of people working in Ukraine. and rent the land from, I don't know, I read about it in the Wageningen Nu, of about 5,000 people living around. But how can you tell something more about it, how you run the business at this moment? What it does mean to be in a war zone and still running the farm?
Yeah, well, I live in the Netherlands now with my children, and Kees is still in Ukraine and will remain in Ukraine, so we will still live in Ukraine, and he's just managing the farm as he did before. Yeah, in the beginning, of course, it was a very tense situation. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how many people would have to go to the front lines to fight. We didn't know what the Russians would do. But after that Kiev wasn't occupied, we soon realized that the Russians would not easily get to us. We live about 200 kilometers south of Kiev. And so we just run our farm the way we did before, but there are some challenges, of course, with the export, the import of goods, the selling of the goods. So those are challenges we just need to deal with. But
what kind of farm do you have?
We've got 15,000 hectare arable land and 2,000 dairy cows and 300 hectares of vegetables. And so that's also our strength, because we've got different businesses, and the arable land is not doing so well now because the prices are very low for us, very high in Europe, but very low for us, high costs. But for example, the vegetables, onions, and carrots are doing really well because Kherson, the occupied areas, has not been producing any vegetables. So we do very well, and the prices are up, and milk as well. So yeah, we've diversified, which helps us now.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions, and thank you, Olaf.
I think what makes me as a Wageninger is because I go to the library every day and playing lunch in the campus plaza.
Ik ben een Wageninger omdat ik het super cool vind om met natuurlijk voorkomende micro-organismen en technologie milieuproblemen op te lossen.
Even though we are from so far away, we feel at home here, and I think that's what makes us
Wageningers.
A Wageninger, yeah.
Okay. Maybe a last question for all of you. Why are you Wageninger? What makes you a Wageninger?
Well, I'm always happy if I'm allowed to call myself, because I only did my PhD here, but I enjoy every time I walk across the campus, and I'm so happy to be able to work here. So I think it's just the feeling of walking across the campus and thinking, oh, there's so much cool stuff happening here, and I'm part of it.
I think if you only did a PhD in Wageningen, you are a Wageninger.
Well,
right? It counts.
That's what you would think, but then I meet people who are like, oh yeah, I've been in Wageningen for 30 years. I did my bachelor's and I was born here,
So there is a competition between Wageningers. Yeah. What makes you a Wageninger?
Well, I came to Wageningen for what Wageningen is. So I didn't study here, but I came here for what Wageningen is for.
Yeah. So you're a little bit in love with Wageningen, what it stands for. Yeah.
Very much.
And you? Are you still a Wageninger?
Yeah, I'm still a Wageninger. I wasn't the best student, but I really I like all the subjects that are being studied here. It's just the most interesting university of the Netherlands, isn't it?
So you're still a Wageninger. Yeah.
Still a Wageninger, yeah.
I think everyone here in the audience also feels a Wageninger. This was the third and last Wageningen Talks. So this is the moment where you all say, For everyone here who joined us, not only this talk show, but also maybe the second or the first talk show, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening carefully to all the wonderful stories of all the Wageningers here at the table. Maybe join us for a little drink in the restaurant. Thank you, Wageningers, for being here. And thank you for watching.